Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today we're going to talk about FSR 3.1. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. So it was just announced over at GDC yesterday that FSR 3 will be getting an update to FSR 3.1. Now FSR FSR has pretty much been in 2.2 for a very long time, almost a year now. And it will be getting an update to the overall output experience for what FSR already does. So I've since the last 8 months that I've been using AMD GPUs pretty much exclusively for those last 8 months now. I've seen multiple iterations of FSR in multiple different games now, and I mean I'm talking multiple games. Just because, I buy a lot of games, I have access to a lot of these games, so I've been able to actually get in there and test a lot of these games with the AMD GPUs, and some of these games look absolutely phenomenal with FSR. Some of them not so much, and the same goes for like DLSS and like other things. I've gotten into some games and DLSS wasn't that great or whatever, but for the most part, DLSS obviously does a very good job. It straightens out everything. It makes everything look nice and crisp, and cleans up the visuals pretty nicely. So when we hear something like introducing AMD's FSR 3 with improved upscaling quality, announced today at GDC 2024, high performance rendering in Snowdrop using AMD FX Super Resolution 3. AMD presentation, AMD FSR 3.1 will have some significant improvements, new capabilities, and updates. So the one thing that's coming is upscaling image quality improvements, improved temporal stability at rest and in movement. So now when you're just sitting there, when you're just sitting still, you won't get a whole lot of flickering or fuzziness or things just looking like they're moving and stuff. You I call it like the new fuzz. It's like Fuzz K. I've been calling it Fuzz K for a while because in some iterations or some implementations of FSR, it looks fuzzy. Like it looks fuzzy, but it looks good on a 4K screen. So I call it Fuzz K, also known as checkerboard rendering. It looked pretty close to that to me when I first saw some of these games with FSR running, and because I'm a console gamer, I came from PS5, Xbox Series X over here to the PC space, and the first thing that came to my mind when I saw some of those implementations of FSR was, oh my gosh, this looks just like Checkerboards on PlayStation 5. But then I've seen other games that absolutely do a very good job, and it's pretty dang convincing. And if it wasn't for distant lines kind of blinking and flickering a little bit, I would have been none the wiser. And so that's the thing that I wanted to talk about with FSR. It's certain games that looks really good. So the main thing that you'll notice on the games that the implementation is pretty good is like in the back, in the distance, or on straight lines or straight surfaces, you might see like a little blinking or flickering or something like that, just kind of unstable straight edges on some things, but everything else, texture quality still looks good. There's not a whole lot of fizzle or fuzz or anything like that. So in those instances where you still get like good image quality, but you will notice instability in the background and stuff, that to me has so far been like a decent implementation of FSR. But when you get like, say, RoboCop, when you're outside and you're walking around at night and the roads are wet and you just see this this overwhelming sense of like sparkle and fizzy. It doesn't necessarily look fizzy. It sparkles and it looks distracting. Like it just doesn't look right. Sometimes it can, you can look at it. I mean, you can obviously get over it and move forward because the rest of the implementation of FSR actually looks pretty decent, like straight edges, stuff like that. But that flicker, not necessarily flicker, but like this it looks sparkly, like these like little white dots everywhere, and it just looks sparkly. And there's just so much of it that it kind of just overpowers the whole image quality. So there's there's ways that this looks good, and then there's then there's poor implementations to where FSR doesn't look good. And when they're talking about like standing still, to like make the image to improve temporal stability while you're standing there and then while you're moving, that is a pretty big accomplishment, to be completely honest with you. And if they can pull this off and it looks good and it's easy to implement, this is a pretty nice upscaling technology. I kind of always have felt like you get a pretty decent FPS boost when you utilize FSR. Sometimes a little bit better than what you get, like with DLSS and stuff like that. So I do kind of feel like you get a little bit better boost sometimes. Well, depending on the architecture too. I feel like you definitely get a better boost out of FSR sometimes. Well, when you're running on AMD's native hardware, it just seems to be doing a little better, because when I test FSR on like the Nvidia cards and stuff, then I don't feel like it does just as much. But I don't know, like I'm still testing all of that and checking that out. Less flickering and shimmering and fuzziness. See, the fuzziness is the one thing that's the one thing that that I have the most issue with, is like the fuzziness. I've never really cared much for the oh gosh, what's it called? Film grain look. I've never really cared much for that look. So with the fuzziness, just looking, because the fuzziness makes it look blurry and it makes it look inconsistent, and so you're not really getting good image quality. And the thing that mainly affects normally is like your vegetation and stuff. And if you want like a better image quality, your best bet is native resolution, obviously. But if you need the extra frames and stuff like that, I'm just glad that's the fuzziness is one of the things that is being taken care of, as well as the ghosting. So sometimes like the ghosting can get really annoying depending on the game. The ghosting can definitely get annoying, and I've seen some bad implementations of it with ghosting, but then I've seen some implementations where like ghosting is not even is a non-issue. Like it might still be there, but it's not anywhere near as intrusive as some of the implementations that I have seen. With this update, they will be decoupling FSR 3 from they'll be decoupling the frame generation aspect of it from FSR. So you'll be able to use this with DLSS, you'll be able to use it with XeSS, or obviously, like native resolution or other things like that, which is freaking awesome, to tell you the truth. Because Nvidia's frame generation is good, don't get me wrong, but I've seen like I'll be playing a game and I got like 60 frames a second, and then it'll bump me up to like 80 frames a second, whereas most FSR implementation for like boosting your frame rate usually doubles the frame rate. So that way you'll have two options of what's better for you. So say you're playing a game on your Nvidia GPU. Okay, like your 30 series card, and you're easily getting 80 frames a second. Oh well, I mean, I guess you'd have to use a 40 series card because you don't have the frame generation with the 30 series cards. But if you're using a 40 series card and say you're getting like 80 frames or something, and then you turn on like frame generation for that on DLSS or whatever, like you use DLSS 3, and you get you go from 80 frames up to like 110 frames. Okay, so say it adds like an extra 20 frames to that, because the way Nvidia does it is a little bit more like, I want to say like it adds whatever frames it can. It just doesn't go above and beyond. And sometimes I mean, like it is whatever. But say you've got like 165 hertz refresh rate. If you've got the 80 frames on that game, if you turn on the FSR's frame generation, that's going to get you closer to the 160. So therefore, it'll provide a smoother experience for you. And at 80 frames a second, like you don't see as much judder or whatever. So from 70 frames forward is where that starts to dissipate. The higher the frame rate you get, the less of the screen instability in the background when you're turning the camera is. And that's pretty freaking cool. So now you'll have two options. You'll have two options on your 40 series cards, but when it comes to like your 30 series cards, you'll still be able to use this now. You'll be able to use it with DLSS, so you can get your DLSS image quality that you're used to, that you like. And that's pretty big. That's pretty big for AMD to make this possible, and for them to make this happen. That's good, and I appreciate that. That's one of the things I love about AMD. They're always trying to make gaming better for everybody, and that's fine. Well, while Nvidia is out there barreling forward and creating new technologies and you know, living on the bleeding edge, that's cool too. Don't get me wrong. Like, those are both cool. Like, Nvidia's out there paving the way, making new stuff. Nvidia and then AMD is in the back filling in the gaps. And that's the way you kind of have to look at it, is AMD is filling in the gaps and bringing you this technology at a lower price point, whereas Nvidia is out there just paving the way, and that's great. We need both of them. We absolutely need both of them, because if you can't afford like the Nvidia, you know, high end, I would say the Nvidia highest end cards are going to give you the best results for those newer features. But the mid-range is pretty good. Like, I love this 4070 Super. I think it's absolutely incredible. It looks beautiful. It's doing a great job. It's definitely doing good. But with AMD bringing in and filling in these gaps, you know, like bringing frame generation to the 30 series, allowing them to use it with their DLSS, so that they don't have to, you know, give up on their overall image quality. That's awesome, because I know that there's people out there that specifically buy NVIDIA for DLSS, and they might not want to have to use FSR, but this gives them the option to use the frame generation to double their frame rate. So if you're getting, you know, and I only recommend this if you're getting 70 or above, but if you're getting 70 frames a second and you got the ability to flip on FSR's frame generation, that's awesome. That's a great feature. This is I personally think that frame generation is good for racing games, and I think frame generation is good for single player, open world story type games that you're exploring, that you're running around, that you're doing a lot of stuff with. Some action combat games it's okay with, just as long as you have a high enough frame rate to be able to immerse yourself in that fast paced movement and all of that stuff. And then like 2D games, obviously it works good in those, but I don't know if you'd necessarily need it for that. But I think both of the frame generation technologies with NVIDIA and AMD are actually pretty good, and they're getting better. Like, with every iteration, they get better. So these are features that are being brought to your hardware that are going to move forward, that are going to get better over time, that are consistently being improved upon, which in the end is going to make your experience better. Especially if you have like a higher end GPU that can actually run this stuff pretty decently, you're getting a good deal. Like, you're gonna be taken care of. So, new AMD Fidelity FX API makes it easier for developers to debug and allows forward compatibility with updated versions of FSR. That's pretty awesome. That just means it'll continue to be iterated on and made better and move forward. Vulkan and Xbox Game Development Kit support. So this technically means that you could potentially be seeing FSR 3.1 in the Xbox and in Vulkan. Like, Vulkan support, there's a lot of games that you'll be using Vulkan if you're running an AMD GPU. Vulkan is just another launcher aside from, like DirectX 12 or whatever. but then also in the Xbox development kit, that is pretty big. That's pretty awesome. That means that, bringing FSR 3 to the Xbox platform, bringing the frame generation, all of those different types of techniques to Xbox. Now, I get the fact that like both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 aren't really super powerful machines, but if they can get to at least 1080p and then upscale from there, you're going to be fine. Like, you'll be fine. Image quality will look dang good, but it's when they're trying to do these 60 FPS modes where they are sub 1080p and then they're trying to fill in the gaps with FSR. That doesn't look that good. But from what I'm seeing right here, if we go down, AMD's, well, let me get this part out first. The AMD FSR 3.1 upscaling quality improvements. The first game to get this is going to be Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So that'll be coming with the 3.1 with the frame generation. And then if you look at like these images here, I don't think it's going to let me make it much bigger. Like, yeah, it's not letting me make it bigger. I tried to do I tried to do it bigger a minute ago. Yeah, see, it still does just this little tiny thing. But let me make this screen over here bigger. Let me do this one. So let me make this a little bit bigger. Actually, I think I could blow this up a little bit more and give you guys a little bit better image quality of this. Okay, so if you look over here on the left, you can kind of see how it's like a little garbled and a little fuzzy, and there's temporal instability in there. Like you can see like the pixels breaking apart. Whereas over here on the right, you're seeing a much cleaner, much crisper overall image quality out of that. And then you can look and see, you can see like the different shading levels look a little bit better. The materials over here on the right are looking a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. Whereas over here, they kind of just look like cell shaded graphics, stuff like that. And these are both at 1080p. 1080p resolution being ran and upscaled, so that there is actually pretty good. That gives me hope that upscaling to 1080p, when they're running at 1080p and it looks this clean right here, that there tells me that this is going to be a benefit for your console experience. Like if you're a PlayStation gamer, Xbox gamer, whatever, having this ability and having these having it look like this, that's going to make your experience look significantly better utilizing FSR 3. And if you got the frame rate over 60 frames a second to be able to boost that to 120 frames, that's good. And most 4K TVs are going to top out at 120 frames. I think there's some either Hisense or TCL or something that are going to 144 now. But the still the fact of the matter is being able to have this type of image quality while having the performance that goes with that is going to be beneficial for the overall console experience. So recommendations for AMD FSR 3 generation, we as we've indicated in previous AMD FSR 3 materials, when using frame generation or with any upscaling quality mode, or with the new native AA, it is highly recommended to always running at the minimum of 60 frames a second. And that's obviously, and that's pretty much what my testing has pretty much said to me in everything that I've played. It gets significantly better the higher your frame rate goes. And then that also helps with image quality. It makes image quality look cleaner. It makes it look more pristine. So this is a good development. And this is awesome for AMD. It does say that the first game coming out will be Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and it says soon for that one. But this will actually be made available for developers starting in quarter 2 of 2024. So we're getting pretty close to that for them to start rolling this out and getting this into the hands of developers. And depending on how fast I think that the rollout for FSR 3 so far has been pretty decent. We just got The Last of Us Part 1. I tested that out the other day. And we've been getting more games. More games are dropping all the time. We still have Cyberpunk that's supposed to be coming. We got new games that are going to be launching day and date with it. I think we're getting tomorrow. I think FSR 3 is already included in either Dragon's Dogma or the Horizon Forbidden West. So, or it's coming to Horizon Forbidden West. So that's pretty awesome. If you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, my friends. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next one.